So, I mean, it boils down to this. Is your favorite player in the portal? Maybe not yet, but he might be soon.
Welcome back to First and Short, your first place to get short bits of college football news and analysis. Today's episode is hosted by Aaron and myself, Mashfik. We come here twice a week to talk to you about, like we said, short bits of college football news and analysis. So would really appreciate you guys, watching. The channel's been growing a lot. Why don't you just share? We're near the end of the year here. We're aiming for 300. We've got 200 something. It would be a great help if all of you just shared it with your mom or your dad or a friend. Just hit the share button, share it with somebody, and make sure that they subscribe. Also follow us on the Apple Podcasts and Spotify applications. All right, Aaron. So, man, it's we're getting to that part of the year where the news isn't as juicy usually, but the transfer portal's not even open yet. Like you mentioned in our open here, but people are already putting their names in the hat. So we definitely want to talk about transfer portal news, some big names that are in there. You might have heard about a couple here and there already. We want to talk about just looking forward to next year. The ACC's disaster of a conference schedule that they just released earlier this week. Got to talk about how hilarious that is. And then I know we have a CFP coming up, but there's also some non-CFP bowl games that we are definitely going to be seated to watch. So going to talk a high level on a few of those. So like I said, the transfer portal, it opens on the 2nd, but players, you might have heard, DJ Lagway, a few other quarterbacks here and there. I'll start with DJ Lagway. No school has been hit harder than Florida by the transfer portal monster. It reminds me of that exodus that Texas A&M had a few years ago. They signed the number 1 class in history, and then I guess the paychecks weren't clearing. I don't know what was going on in the locker room. They had a huge exodus the year after. Right now that's going on with Florida. Obviously different situation. They got a new head coach in John Summerall. Reports are that John Summerall, he came in, obviously DJ Lagway is the glue that's holding this whole team together. He comes in, meets with them, and it sounds like he kind of challenged him as a man to try and figure out what kind of football player he is, and maybe that rubbed him the wrong way. I don't know. Maybe he brought Powerade into the meeting, and DJ Lagway was a Gatorade guy. Anyway, Lagway is one of 14 Florida players who have announced their decision to leave the program as of recording, and this includes multi-game starters from the 2025 season, 12 scholarship players, and 2 walk-ons. So just a real huge blow to the core of that team. And it's not the biggest concern these days. Obviously, if players can leave through the transfer portal, John Summerall can grab players from the transfer portal. Plenty of players will want to play for Florida. But right now, there's very few amount of players that are the athletic specimen like DJ Lagway. Some schools to watch out for DJ. LSU is obviously a big one. Lane Kiffin, offensive mastermind. Miami, they've got the NIL. They've got the recent success with Cam Ward and Carson Beck. Clemson is actually on a list to watch as well. Clemson was a finalist in his recruitment out of high school, so that's a place to watch. And then Texas Tech, the way they were able to rise to prominence so fast this year was because of NIL, and they're going to be aggressive in the portal year over year. So that's another team to watch as well.
Yeah. Hey, I heard it earlier this week, when a lot of kids, when they're looking to transfer from that initial school they went to, you have to consider where they grew up at, right? Where's their home? And so, I know Lagway, he's a guy from Texas. Texas Tech could potentially be a spot for him, I understand he's from, I think, the outskirts of Houston, maybe. So Lubbock
closer to Waco, and actually his dad played at Baylor. So that is another team that I saw. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much I don't know how much like the legacy still affects kids these days. Like they're gonna go where the money is, and I don't know
Yeah,
if Baylor's gonna be spending that money. But yeah,
fair.
similar. Yeah, you were on a good track there though.
Fair, fair. Yep. One more team I saw in there that I don't see on here. I saw, Auburn, they got a new coach. They're probably
Mhm.
looking for a new quarterback. I mean, hey, he could go there. You never know. So I mean, the options could be endless, but I'm sure there's more to come and when the portal opens, right?
Yeah. While we're on the subject of Florida, they got the second string quarterback from Georgia Tech, Philo,
Mm,
something Philo, and I'm like, the transfer portal's not even open yet, and teams are already making deals. It's actually insane, but it's like like there's no one to stop them, so why not?
yeah, yeah, that's fair. Speaking of, other quarterbacks who've announced their intent to go into the transfer portal before it opens, Dylan Raiola, right? Um, the former five-star recruit will be officially entering the portal again on January 2nd when it opens. Um, he has, two more seasons of eligibility, and he's seeking a program where he can essentially thrive and, harness his best potential while developing for the next steps of his career is what we've been told by sources. Um, Nebraska, their head coach broke their silence Wednesday evening. In doing so, he asked for prayers for the five-star quarterback. He said if he needs a fresh start, I'm going to pray that he finds the right place, but that he has so much success, And he also said, with that being said, there's a lot of great quarterbacks out there and a lot of guys who want to play for Nebraska. So Nebraska's going to be looking for that next guy as well. Um, so I was digging. I mean, Raiola, he passed for over 4,819 yards over the past two seasons. He had 31 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. And so, the stats don't sound amazing, but he had a much better year too, having 18 touchdowns, six interceptions, but this season was cut short due to injuries early. Um, some of the top rumored options for him. So we've heard Louisville and Miami early. I mean, Miami, of course, they're probably going to be tied into every big quarterback in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Um, Louisville's interesting for me. We've also heard LSU. I mean, Lane Kiffin, you never know who he's going to get. And then I've also heard Texas Tech, since, Dylan is such a huge Pat Mahomes fan. He may
Yeah.
go try to chase after the glory there. So,
You think he might go to Kansas so he can play in the same stadium as Patrick Mahomes on Saturdays?
hey, you never know with that guy. But like I said, options are endless. Only time will tell when the portal opens to see where he actually could go.
Yeah. A few other notable quarterbacks in the portal. Sam Levitt, he's currently ranked as the number one player in the portal right now. He led, obviously Arizona State to the playoffs last year. Right now, some spots for him: Indiana, LSU, Oregon are some of the top contenders. Drew Mestamaker, the quarterback at North Texas, he's the way that he has led North Texas to the team being the team with the most yards per game for a team, for a team in CFB. A lot of people are going to be looking for him as well. I think we're seeing a trend in some schools. You and I both mentioned Miami. Oregon has been doing this for years. We're seeing a trend where some schools don't even look they don't even care to land the best quarterbacks out of high school anymore and like build high school recruiting pipeline around them. They want proven commodities out of the portal, and uh, for some teams it works, some teams it doesn't. But that's the shift that I'm seeing.
Sure.
Um, yeah,
I mean,
there's a go ahead.
with the portal, I mean, and with the urgency to be better now, with quarterback being such a critical position,
Yeah,
that's
who wants
where
to spend time
they're going to.
developing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Developing something that cannot have, wiggle room or little to no mistakes, right? A running back making a mistake on the field versus a quarterback can mean two very different things. A running back making the wrong read can just mean minimal yards. A quarterback making the wrong read can mean an interception. So
Yeah.
it means more for that position. That's why they're paid the most in the portal. That's why they're paid the most in the NFL. They are the field generals. They are almost another coach out there for you, right? So
Yeah.
you want a seasoned, mature, smart guy.
Yeah. How old was Diego? He was like 28 or something this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few non-quarterback players I wanted to highlight that I think could be difference makers wherever they land. Nick Marsh, he was a wide receiver out of Michigan State. He put his name in there, just a sophomore. And I was just looking at his stats. Back-to-back 600-yard seasons. Obviously, Michigan State, they probably ran out of their NIL contract money, and so he's developed now, and now he's going to be looking for a long-term, home, long-term, 1 or 2 years. Boo
Mhm.
Carter, safety out of Tennessee. I thought he was a
Mhm.
great player for them. I've heard rumors that he was kind of a locker room, nuisance type of guy, but he was very versatile, and I think he got hurt. No, he got hurt. He was hurt at middle of this season, and so he kind of like checked out kind of early. But those are
Is
just two difference makers that I've seen.
is he a Georgia boy?
Boo Carter, I'm not sure. Let me see where he's from. I don't think so. No, he's from Chattanooga. He's from Tennessee.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah,
So he's right there.
yeah,
He's right there on that line. Okay.
yeah. He is.
That's
He could go
that's
play at
very
Kennesaw.
interesting. Yeah, he could. He could.
Kennesaw's
Could play
doing well.
on. Yeah, they
Yeah.
are.
I wanted to revisit some of the transfer portal impact players that we, kind of predicted. We were kind of hit and miss on that one. Did you want to move to that next?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, we talked about who we thought some of the biggest impacts would be. We can start about with who we thought were going to be the big impacts this year on offense in the transfer portal. I had Nico at UCLA. Of course, that didn't go to plan. I mean, he had somewhat of an okay year after the coaching change, but nowhere as near as productive as he was at Tennessee the year before. And then you had who did you have?
Yeah, I had John Mateer.
Mhm.
I I had said on that episode 1 or 2 when we did this segment, like Nico was the obvious choice. Things didn't pan out, but for me, I thought John Mateer. My exact words were he was headed to an offense that was dead near last in every category, and Oklahoma's offense is okay. They're ranked 74th in points per game, 91st in yards per game. So better, not great, but they're here in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
he's doing just enough to get there. But I thought that was an okay pick. He was a Heisman hopeful at some points throughout the season. That quickly went away after he got hurt. So that may or may not, have helped or happened. But yeah,
Yep. And then I mean, who knows what could have happened if the hand injury never happened and
yeah,
he never
exactly, yeah,
slowed down after that point, right? So I
right.
mean,
Like
you know,
maybe they would have beat Texas if he wasn't hurt, and then we could be having a whole different conversation right now.
exactly, exactly. The butterfly effect. One small thing changed probably so many other things. On the defensive side of the ball. So uh I picked Elo Madozi for UGA to be the most of an
Who?
impact. Yeah, exactly,
Who?
right? A guy who had minimal impact, 5 total tackles this year. I mean, the Dogs
Just
defense, they've improved a lot, but I can't say it was because of him.
nah, yeah. Just wasn't ready for SEC play, which
Yeah.
coming from I think it was Army, right?
Yep.
It is what it is. Not going to hit on all of those. On defense, I picked Patrick Payton.
Mhm.
He was a transfer from Florida State to LSU. He came into a defense that was terrible the year before, and LSU's defense was, as a team, much better. One of the best units in the sport, and he did okay. He wasn't a standout by any means, but a lot of times when you play defense, a lot of your actions don't show up as numbers, right? So I don't know. Maybe he was a culture guy. Maybe the team liked him, but yeah, he did okay. Not great.
Mhm. No,
Yeah.
that's fair. Well, that's fair. So now that we're on the, the back end of the season and we've seen transfer porters make their impacts, Who would you pick as your biggest transfer portal impacts this season? Wrapping up, starting out with offense. Who's your guy?
Yeah. Yeah, starting with offense, I'm gonna pick the obvious answer. I'm gonna pick Fernando Mendoza. Obvious for he won the Heisman. He came
Mhm.
from Cal. We talked about this last episode. 2-star prospect. Immediately took a team that everyone thought was gonna be a one-hit wonder, and instead turned them into a number one seed, and a Big Ten champion.
Mhm.
So definitely the biggest hit of the transfer portal. Shout out to Kurt Signetti for his ability to diagnose talent in that fashion.
Yep, 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 yep.
What about you?
Nice, nice. I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna stay at quarterback, but I'm gonna move to a different conference. I'm gonna go to Joey Aguilar, number one in passing yards in the SEC. First year as a starter when Nico left abruptly. He left Tennessee abruptly, and everybody was like, "Oh, Tennessee's doomed. That they're just left with this backup who's played Sun Belt ball and spent a little bit of time at UCLA, but never played there." He came into this conference and he made noise.
Yeah,
He made a lot of noise, and he kept the standard, in my opinion, for Tennessee offense exactly how it's supposed to be. High, he's up there with the Hendon Hookers, the Josh Dobbs. He's throwing bombs, and so he really impressed me despite where they finished this year in the season. I think he showed up and he exceeded expectations.
considering the how late he entered into the program
Yeah.
and didn't get like the spring ball, type of time, he did great, right? Like,
Yeah.
I imagine he'll be there next year. I haven't heard anything different. If he's there, he's got a whole nother year, and with Josh Heupel and learning the system and all that jazz. He might be back into a Heisman conversation, or at least a CFP with Tennessee conversation again next year.
Exactly, exactly.
Who would you pick on the defensive side?
So on the defensive side, when I was thinking about this earlier, I was like, I can't just narrow it down to one guy. Um,
Okay.
I'm gonna narrow it down to two. Okay, so I have Romello Height and David Bailey from Texas Tech. Right.
Okay.
This Texas Tech team, they knew exactly what they were lacking, and they needed to go get in the portal. They picked up these two guys, and they've just caused like absolute chaos for teams throughout the years. I mean, throughout this year. They've contributed to over 22 sacks for the Red Raiders this year, and they've contributed to producing 5 turnovers for this team this year. Um, in doing so, they've pretty much risen Texas Tech to be one of the best defenses in the nation,
Yeah.
and uh, are key reasons as to why they're playing in the playoffs, this year and have a chance to potentially play for a national championship. Um, all in all, who would have knew, a guy from Georgia Tech who had, I think, 2.5 sacks last year would come in and have 9.5 for you this year. I don't know what they saw in the portal and, these guys, but they made the right decision nonetheless.
Hmm.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. For defense, the name that comes to mind was Damon Wilson.
Mhm.
Um, the Missouri's defense was something that they kind of hung their hat on. They had Ahmad Hardy on the offensive side, great rushing, and then they had great running defense, on the other side of the ball, and a big part of that was Damon Wilson. Um, UGA transfer, despite the legal dispute that he was having with his old school, he emerged as a premier, defensive star on that good, Missouri defensive front. He didn't have the most tackles, but he did lead the team with the most sack yards. I think it was 80 something or something like that. So that's what he wanted when he left UGA. He wanted the opportunity to get more sacks. And look, now he's at a team that where he is able to produce that. And so, in any case, yeah, that was my biggest defensive transfer standout, for
Yeah.
me.
Hey, sometimes it's the guys we never have on our radars. Sometimes it's the guys we just overlook, right? Like,
Yeah.
you never know who's going to make those big impacts or who's going to fall short, and that's the risk you take with paying these players big time money, for 1 or 2 years, right? Like
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. But moving on, we're gonna move on to the ACC's disaster of a conference schedule, right? So earlier this week, the ACC rolled out a laughable conference schedule on what they're calling a transition year. Um, 12 of their 17 teams will be playing 9 conference games, and 5 of them will be playing 8. If you remember earlier this year, NC State played a game against Virginia that did not count as a conference game either. So a lot of weirdness, a lot of craziness going on in this conference. It seems like having an odd number of teams plus having a contract to play Notre Dame in 5 non-conference games is just not adding up. The games, against them really has led to the conundrum of a scheduling issue. Um, One thing I want to discuss, so those 5 teams who have the 8 games, they're Clemson, they're Georgia Tech, Florida State, North Carolina, and Boston College. Um, are they trying to bolster their chances at a college football playoff bid by having these teams only playing 8 games this year?
Yeah, like how do they I guess one way to look at it is like these teams do have multiple Power 4 opponents on their schedule already, including like their rivalry games and that sort of stuff. Clemson has South Carolina, Georgia Tech has Georgia, Florida State has Florida. So I get it that their schedule already has a good team in a good conference already,
Mhm.
but it kind of does seem that way, right? Like Clemson is the golden child of the ACC, but then again, like Miami is starting to emerge as that team just because of how much NIL money that they have. I don't know. To me, I think it all comes down to like ineptitude. Like ACC has teams on the West Coast, their Atlantic Coast, and it just seems they have an uneven amount of teams. Like, what sport do you know has an uneven amount of teams?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. So,
That
like,
does
why do they do that to themselves? So, I think it all comes down to ineptitude, and I might just have to leave it at that. A disaster of a conference schedule is a great title for this segment of the show.
I'll tell you what, having Cal in the Atlantic Coastal Conference just still blows my mind. It will
Yeah,
always blow my mind as long as they're in this conference. So yeah, they got to figure that out. Until then, they're just gonna have this wonky unbalance of games being played, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's move on then. We've got some bowl games to watch coming up. I know there are games outside of the CFP, So one that comes to mind is the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. We've got number 13 Texas versus number 18 Michigan. Um I don't I wonder if Mr. Cheez-It would have chose Michigan as their bowl, kind of entrant invitee if the Sharon Moore stuff had happened even earlier. But
Yeah.
right now, Arch Manning, he's announced that he's coming back for another year. Sharon Moore is obviously gone, but I think these two teams, we kind of knew. Well, Texas was like an SEC favorite, a CFP lock in type of team. Michigan, we didn't know what kind of team Michigan was. I think they ended up being better than we thought, but I think there's still a lot of good amount of talent on both of these teams, and Texas is actually like losing a lot of guys to the portal already. But this could be an interesting to watch. Is there anything that you want to watch out for here, like for like looking into next year?
Um, yeah, yeah. So I mean, after this game, you have to wonder. I mean, what's going to happen with these players, especially like let's just say worst case scenario. Let's just say Texas blows out Michigan, right? Let's just say the team just loses their morale, their togetherness. What if all these players just decide, hey, I don't want to play here anymore? What if we
Mhm.
see stars, just all of them go into the transfer portal? Like
Yeah.
that would create unbalance and a huge ripple in the portal, So
Yeah, I think with bowl games, especially ones that this is their last game of the season, what you kind of it's more of a culture game. Like what kind of culture is instilled in your program, right?
Hmm.
And you've got guys that are already declaring for the portal, blah blah blah. Like that could be a chink in the armor. Another thing I would like to see is like, okay, so Bryce Underwood, we know what happened to him. Coming out of high school, Michigan obviously is losing their head coach. What kind of game is he going to put on tape? And is it going to be one that says like, "Hey, I'm here to build something at Michigan," or is it going to be something like, "Oh, I'm ready to get this over with," or is he even going to play? I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's what we're going to see. And Texas and Michigan, these are two teams that are always going to be in the conversation for title contenders at different
Yep.
levels. So it'll just be interesting to see like what is the culture that is instilled right now.
Hmm.
Yeah. Another one on the 31st is the ReliaQuest Bowl. This is number 14 Vanderbilt versus number 23 Iowa. Last game for Diego Pavia. I think I haven't seen him say that he doesn't want to play, but football players want to play football. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be cool to see the Diego show one last time.
Yep.
That's really all the thoughts I had about this one. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, I mean, he'll be playing a good defense, a good stingy defense. So, it'd be interesting to have him see him have one last challenge, maybe. So, um, don't think it'll be too much of a challenge just because Iowa does
Yeah.
not have the offense to compete with Vanderbilt's offense, right?
Right.
Um,
For sure.
Another game I see on the schedule, the 27th of December,
Mm.
BYU playing Georgia Tech.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Pop
I
Tart
think
Bowl.
Pop-Tart Bowl, AKA the what if bowl, right? These teams,
Mm.
what if they would have won one or two more games?
Yeah.
They'd be in the playoffs, maybe, right?
These teams were
Um,
high in like we like not locked in, but the door is closing as they should be in.
yeah, all right. Like week 11, week 10, week 12, we're like, okay, these are favorites to get in. But
Yeah.
hey,
BYU just needed
you're-
one more win, like they just needed to not get blown out by Texas Tech maybe.
yep, yep. And then Georgia Tech, they just needed to handle business in their conference. I think if they were in their conference championship game, they would have found a way to win.
Yeah.
But you know, coulda, shoulda, woulda. It'll be a good matchup here.
Do you think
Hopefully
Haynes
we
King
get to see.
plays? I think Haynes King will play.
I think he plays. So he loves this team so much. I think he'll play. Yep. So
Nice.
Haynes King versus Bear. Whew, that'll be a good matchup.
I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
Two bad
Mhm.
boys right there, which is perfect segue to the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. All right, we got Penn State versus Clemson also on the 27th. This one I want to watch. These were two teams that were preseason natty favorites. I mean, what these two teams just really went off a cliff, and so maybe that's why they're in the Bad Boy Pinstripe Bowl.
Mhm.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be fun. I don't. We should have did a little bit more research what players are actually playing and which ones are not. But I think Dabo's time at Clemson is coming to a close. I feel like Michigan is probably talking to him on the phone right now. And so is this
Yeah.
the last game? Is this the last game we see with Dabo? I don't know. Or sorry, Dabo at Clemson. I mean, I don't know. But
I've got my I've got my own conspiracy theories about where Dabo could go, but I may hold off on him until after we see some playoff games settle.
oh yeah,
So
so
yeah,
give me a hint. What conference do you think?
I think he could end up in the SEC if things get crazy. If things
Mm,
get crazy, yeah.
okay, all right.
So you never know where the wind or the tide could blow him.
Oh, the
Um,
Tide. I got you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, one last game we want to talk about. The Liberty Mutual Music City Bowl, Tennessee versus Illinois. I thought this game was a little ironic. Tennessee's CFP, campaign kind of ended with their last game against Vanderbilt, and now their last game of the season is in Nashville. And so that's the only reason this game kind of really stuck out to me. But this one will be on December 30th. We talked about Joey Aguilar earlier. But yeah, it'll be a few of their players have decided to leave. I saw that their backup quarterback is in the transfer portal already. So it seems like Joey Aguilar has got it. So we'll get a good look at next year's team here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's everything that we had for this week. We are very excited for bowl games to start up here on Friday. And yeah, we're working on figuring out how we can do instant reactions, but we'll be back, here and there over the weekend, and then we'll do a full show on Sunday. Talk to you guys soon.